Hey guys, okay, so we were talking about liquidity traps. We said that like Keynesians had a view that when you look at speculative demand for money, they said that speculative demand for money is very responsive to interest rates. But an argument that was also raised is that if you believe that the interest rates are uh, very low, right, then the price of bonds will be very high, right? If the interest rates are so low that they won't fall any further, then price of bonds will be so high that they will not rise any further. And if such is the case, nobody is going to buy bonds, right? Because they'll be like, if I buy a bond, I'm going to be making a loss, a capital loss, because nobody is going to buy this uh, from me. So when the interest rates are very low, price of bonds are really high. What happens as a result is this, that people then start to not buy assets, financial assets or bonds any further. In fact, people start to save money. Okay, they start to save money, and they're saving money because they know that tomorrow prices will fall further, and we can buy then when the prices are falling. So the idea behind liquidity trap is this, that your demand for money is very flat at one point in time, which means the interest rates are so low they cannot fall any further. If they can't fall any further, which means price of bonds, and by the way, not only price of bonds, price of all assets, price of bonds and all assets will what happened? Price of bonds or all other assets will actually going to not rise any further. So government, when they increase money supply, guys, government when they increase money supply, the result will be, let me close this. Government when they increase money supply, the result will be that money supply goes up and everyone is going to hold this amount of extra cash. It's called liquidity trap because normally, look at this. If the government is increasing money supply, let's say MS star to MS naught, so interest rate will go down. And when the interest rate goes down, C goes up, I go up, AD goes up, right? That's called monetary policy. But here, when the money supply went up, nothing happened to the interest rate because the liquidity trap took place. A good example is basically Japanese economy. I want to show you this, that the Japanese economy suffered from this prolonged recession from the 1990s to early 2000. The government and central bank, they kept on increasing money supply, but people were not spending that money. When you increase money supply, you are giving people more money, and those money that people get, ultimately you want people to spend that money. If people don't spend their money, they end up saving that. There will be something called, remember, paradox of thrift that used to happen, where people just keep on saving and nobody's going to spend it. uh, they prefer to hold idle balances, which means they prefer to save money. What is more, with interest rate already being zero or virtually zero, there was little incentive to buy bonds. Inflation meaning, in fact, this is what we call deflation happening. Deflation only because aggregate demand will keep on falling. The economy isn't really growing. The economy is slowing down. So any extra money was simply kept in idle balances, which is lost in liquidity trap. Okay, I want to read the first paragraph as well. So Keynes called this liquidity trap as maybe a special case, the case where economy is in deep recession. So economy has gone into a deep recession in where money supply is increasing, but it's not affecting economy at all. So they believe very strongly, Keynesians believe, that when the interest rates are very, very low, monetary policy is not effective. When interest rates are high, like in this zone, monetary policy will be effective, right? In this zone, monetary policy is effective, but lower interest rates and lower interest rate policy doesn't work because you may keep on increasing money supply, you may not see interest rate to change. If interest rate doesn't change, you won't see the economy to have any change. Make sense? So it's more like a psychological kind of effect where your interest rates has gone down and yet you are seeing people to not end up spending money at all. Any questions, guys? Are we good to move on? Okay, now let's move on to a new discussion, which is basically how do we use money supply. So it's called monetary transmission mechanism. Okay, let me write this down. It's called monetary transmission mechanism. And there is a direct monetary transmission mechanism, and there is an indirect monetary transmission. What is monetary? Monetary means money. How does money affects the economy? How does money transmit into the economy? So first thing first is this, that if money supply goes up, we will say this, that suddenly money supply will be greater than money demand. Isn't that true? If money supply goes up, the economy will have more cash available. Leave it, guys. Just focus. This is the last thing you should worry about. If money supply goes up, money supply will be greater than money demand. Isn't that true? Right? Which would mean people will have what we call excess liquidity. Which would mean this excess liquidity will end up being spent. So AD will go up, and the rise in AD will basically cause the economy's GDP to go up, but also can also cause the price level to go up. So the idea goes this, that your economy will see AD to go up. So AD goes up, you will see the GDP to go up in an economy as well. Okay, so that's the first idea that we say this, that whenever government is printing more money or increasing money supply, it will allow people to have more money available to be spent. When they spend that, AD goes up. Okay, are we good? This is fairly straightforward. What is the indirect monetary transmission? This is basically, we say is this, that money supply goes up, your interest rate will go down. And a fall of interest rate would mean what? Consumption can go up because of cost of borrowing and incentive to save. Investment will increase, and that may cause AD to go up, and therefore causes GDP to go up. So the direct monetary transmission is simply saying more liquidity, therefore more spending. Indirect monetary transmission basically says this, more money supply causing interest rate to go down. So in this case, in the second case, we're making this kind of a diagram. I have interest rates here. I have quantity of money here. If money supply goes up, and this is my money demand or liquidity preference, so interest rate will go down. Okay, which will cause AD to rise, but GDP to also rise. Are you good? Does that make sense, guys? Any questions about this? So what kind of a policy is this called? Is it a fiscal policy or is it a monetary policy? It's a monetary policy. In fact, we call it expansionary monetary policy. Why do they call it expansionary monetary policy? Because GDP goes up. You're expanding money supply to reduce interest rate to make the economies AD goes up. How often has a question come on this? A lot often. It's a very popular policy question and a thing we'll look at it. But this is just the introduction of it. Next class will be basically all about monetary policy. In fact, today we can start monetary policy. So guys, indirect monetary transmission says what? An increase in money supply results in interest rate to fall. Uh, Now, there's another thing that I want to talk about, which is uh, the hot money argument. Okay, so let's talk about that. I don't know whether we've done that in the AS. Did you guys do hot money in the AS? Have you heard about hot money? What was hot money? We call it short term monetary flows. Exactly. If Pakistan interest rate goes down, a lot of people who have their money put in Pakistan from abroad, what will they do? They will pull out their money, right? So can I say this, that if the interest rate goes down, right, your foreigners will foreigners will deposit elsewhere, right? And domestic individuals, what will they do? They will do what? Domestic individuals will also deposit abroad, right? Two things will happen as a result of that, guys. When you look at demand and supply of currency, uh, exchange rate will go down, but I want to explain why exchange rate will go down. On the supply side, look at this from the supply side perspective. You will Pakistani will supply rupee to take dollars to put dollars abroad. So supply of pounds, or rather, if you're looking at, so supply of rupees will go up. Why? You supply, for example, if I want to buy a Japanese car, what do I need to do? I give my rupee, get Japanese currency, Japanese yen, and then I buy a Toyota, for example, right? So if I want to put my money abroad also, I would supply my rupee, so supply of rupee will go up. But demand for rupee, what will happen? Demand for rupee will fall. Why? Because people demand currency when they put money in your country. When they are not putting money in the country, the demand will go down. So both of these factors would make the exchange rate fall. Right? When the exchange rate goes down, exports become cheaper, imports become expensive, and that will make the X minus M goes up, which will also make the AD go up. Correct? So the factor that I missed out here, when the money supply is going up, we said this, that interest rate is going up. Let me zoom this. When the money supply goes up, interest rate goes up, C goes up, I go up, and even X minus M goes up. Why? Because hot money flows into the economy. So X minus M goes up, causing AD to go up and therefore GDP to go up. So why is X minus M going up? Because hot money is flowing into the country. So this is called, next time we will not write such a big story. We'll just say hot money flows in. Why do we call it hot money? It's simply because it's a short-term funds transfer that happens. It's not a long-term fund transfer that's happening. And it normally happens in developed countries. Like Pakistan's interest rate go down, will you see a lot of money coming in? And the answer is going out or coming in if the interest rate goes up. And the answer is not necessarily. But a lot of people would want to take advantage of short-term gain anywhere. Right now, government has come up with a scheme called Roshan account. I don't know what you guys know about this. There's a Roshan account. They're giving it to, they're telling all the Pakistani individuals living abroad that we're giving you, I think, a 15% return on your deposits. You give us your foreign currency, and we'll give you 15%, a very good return they're giving. And a lot of my friends who live abroad, they're putting their money in Pakistan in these accounts. And that's basically encouraging short-term deposits to come. Make sense? Are we good? Does that make sense, guys? Any questions about this? So this is what we call indirect monetary transmission, because money supply has caused so many variables to change, which has caused AD to change. Got it? And that's kind of like your monetary policy. If you look at this, this is exactly what monetary policy is. Am I good to move on? Are we good to move on? Yeah. So in a way, we've done with this chapter. I've done this diagram. So I said that, I look at this, money supply goes up, interest rate goes down. Because hot money is flowing in, supply is going up, demand is going down, causing exchange rate to fall, right? And AD is going up. AD is going up, and if you had a recession or you had a output gap, you can fill that up by making the AD go up. So I made a long run aggregate supply curve to show that government has purposely made the AD go up so that we can come to full employment level. Yeah, so that's what is happening here. We call it indirect monetary transmission because it's the interest rate that changes, which is causing a lot of these other variables to change, C, I, and X minus M. Do we have physical copy of the notes? Have you guys have it, right? Please. It's just that it just puts the pressure off you guys. And once you've read this, you know, page ho gaya, cover ho gaya, and all that. Because I'm actually telling you guys, this is the page that I'm doing. So you know exactly this is the discussion that we've done. And whatever I write, I want you guys to write as well. Whatever I write, I want you guys to write that as well, because that will be your revision kind of a framework for you guys. Okay. Any questions? What's your name? Aniba, are you here for the first time? Have you been here before? Yeah. Online? Physically is the first time for you? पहले भी आई हूँ। वो काफी बच्चों के चेहरे मुझे नए नए लग रहे हैं, पता नहीं क्यों। You can be not part of the class and be attending, you know, like, and I would never even figure it out. Not that you are part of the class, I'm not saying that. Are we going to move on? Okay, guys, next up, I'm going to talk about something we did in the AS as well. This is actually called more like not a Fisher equation, but what we call quantity theory of money. So let's talk about the quantity theory of money, which comes in our AS. Do we remember this MV equals to PT from AS? M was what? Let me recap this so that it becomes easier. We said that M is money supply, right? I've written this. M is money supply. V is velocity or number of times money is changing hands. P is price level. T is quantity or output. So what is this equation telling us? Is a simple idea that, let's say in an economy, goods are for $5, okay? And let's say the total quantity is 100. So how much is the value of the GDP, guys? 500. How much money should government print for $500 worth of transaction? At least 500. If you want to make $500 worth, so 500. What if the government only prints $50? So money supply is $50. This would mean if I have $50, what's your name? Amir? Munib. Okay. If I have $50, I'll give $50 to Munib, and Munib will give me, let's say, $50 worth of goods. How much is sold in the economy? $50. How much is left? $450 still. Munib will go to Ali, and Munib will buy goods from Ali. So now money has changed hands 2 times, and $100 worth of transactions have happened, right? And then 3 times and 4 times, 5 times. In fact, if you find velocity is PT over M, which is 500 over 50 or 10. If money change hands 10 times, $500 worth of transaction will take place. You get the equation? So government sometimes print less money than required, and money will change hands for the $500 worth of transaction to happen. This is the value of your GDP, and there's a lot of MCQs we'll do on that. And this is your money, number of time money is changing heads, and M is your money supply. So Zamin, if $500 is the total value of GDP, and a government is printing $50, then V is basically number of time money has to change hands for the $500 worth of transaction to happen. So that's 10. So 10 times 50 will make the $500 worth of transaction to happen. Now, why do we care about this equation? According to monetarists, monetarists' idea is this. Monetarists are of the view, because we're doing money supply, monetarists are of the view, that when you look at MV equals to PT, they say V and T are constant. Remember this from AS, monetary inflation? They used to say V and T are constant, which means whenever M goes up, you will see T to go up. Whenever money supply goes up, M goes up, you will see price level to go up. Now, why is V and T constant? And I want to talk about this quickly. Why is V constant, guys? They used to say V is basically your spending pattern. V is your spending pattern. What do you mean by this? For example, I gave Munib $50 because I wanted to buy things from Munib. Like right now, you are in A levels. Am I right to predict your A1 and A2 expenditure in A levels has more or less stayed the same? What you buy as a person kind of is the same. And when you go to college for 4 years, more or less your expenditure will remain the same, more or less. And then when you go to your first job, again, there will be a new kind of expenditure, but it will remain the same till you, for example, get married. And then probably another set of expenditure, and then your first baby, another set of expenditure, second baby, another set of expenditure, and blah, blah, blah. But does that change of expenditure happen quickly or slowly? Slowly. So what they argue is this, that this V is spending pattern, which changes slowly. You will not have a different expenditure pattern every second day. The reason why money is changing hands is because somebody's spending pattern is involved, and that isn't really changing that often. And that's why V, they believe, is constant over time, not that flickering or not that changing over time. Okay. T, on the other hand, they say T is your quantity, and that depends on your factors of production: land, labor, capital, enterprise. That also doesn't really change that often, because A, the economy might see economic growth to happen in the long run. If V and T are both kind of constant, then they are irrelevant to this equation. Whenever money supply goes up, you will cause monetary inflation to happen. This is what the argument is. You guys get the idea? Yeah. So monetary inflation, monetarists are of the view that the changes in money supply can have a significant impact on the price level, and that's why they believe the biggest cost of why inflation happens is when the government recklessly print money. Whenever government increase money supply through reserve ratio, whatever, they will always end up causing inflation to happen. Make sense? And look at this, guys. Look at this also. AD went up, price level did go up. Money supply went up, AD went up, price level went up. So this is inflation happening. Got it? So there is price level going up. Now, Keynesians have a counter argument. I want to talk about Keynesian's view, but before I talk about Keynesian view, are we happy with the monetarist view? Did we get the Keynesians, by the way, said, you know what, your theory doesn't really make sense. Number one, they said V is spending pattern. Agreed, or V depends on spending pattern. But what if lending options are available? You know, they say that in modern economy, people have easy access to, like debt or credit cards. And you go to a store, you go to, for example, Hyperstar or whatever, and you find something and you be like, you know what, it's at a good price, I may end up buying it. So they argue this, that it's not necessarily true that V is constant, because we have people with a lot of these borrowing options or lending options, I should say borrowing options. a lot of this uh, borrowing options available. For example, you can have credit card. I buy a good from my credit card, and I need to pay after 40 days. So like I know I have that kind of a room. So all of this possibility would mean people may end up spending more than their desired needs. So they say V is not necessarily constant. Number one. Number two, they say T is also not constant. Why? And they came up with this argument. According to them, remember how is their LRAS? Their LRAS is their LRAS is like this. So this would mean there is a possibility of unemployment even in the long run, which means T is the quantity which can go up at any point in time because the economy is not necessarily at full employment. You guys get that? So Keynesian's argument ये है कि even though you may feel that T depends on factor of production and it can't change, but economy when it's in unemployment zone, remember all of this is unemployment, where the economy has resources, T can easily change even in the long run, even in the short run, or in a over time. So they say V and not constant. And that's why they say whenever money supply goes up, it can change any variable. There is no sort of defined relationship between money supply and price level. And look at this, guys. See, price level. Isn't this P naught? What if this happens? What if AD goes up and you are in unemployment? Does the price level go up? No. Why? Because you are in unemployment zone. So they argue this that when you increase money supply, interest rate falls. Maybe you might not see your price level to go up to begin with. Got it? Does that make sense? So that's your Keynesian's counter arguments to it. Um, any questions, guys? Are we good? Okay, so in terms of syllabus, guys, we are now going to start monetary and fiscal policy from tomorrow. Tomorrow is what day? Thursday. So we're going to start monetary fiscal policy tomorrow. How about this tomorrow? Let me do some MCQs from this chapter, monetary sector chapter, and then we'll do monetary fiscal policy from Monday. And hopefully it's going to take us a week to finish that. And then comes this unemployment chapter, which is another week for unemployment chapter. Then comes chapter 9. Chapter 9 is economic growth and development, which is super easy. Yeah, that's super like easy chapter. So we're not going to spend too much time there. I'm going to go back then to do the micros last chapter, which is government intervention. We're going to do that, and this chapter kind of like together. So that's how our syllabus looks like. So we are more or less in the last leg of our syllabus, and I think we're doing fine when it comes to, because today is what the target is to keep like a week for revision at least before we sit for our mocks. So this is the 9th, which is the last chapter. There is a 10th chapter as well, but that's like a recap of policies. So 9th and 10 are like quick chapters. So for me, the major chapters are 2 left, 7 and 8. 7 and 8 are the crucial chapters. 6 we've done. Tomorrow we do some MCQs of 6. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a good one.